Hey everybody, so I'm going to do another Auto Trader video. I've done a few like this in recent weeks, months, and this time we're going to look for an A2 bike for under £3,000. I've been asked to do this video by a few people, A2 bikes that is, and I've been given a range of prices from like 2.5 to 3.5 grand, so I say, you know, we'll look at 3. Okay, so price up to 3k. We're going to have a starting price of 1,000. Keywords, A2. If you're not from the UK and you're watching this, if you don't know what the A2 license is, in the UK licenses have different levels. I have a video on this subject, but just understand that the A2 license is an intermediary sort of level license that allows you to ride a bike up to 48 brake horsepower with a power to weight ratio involved in that as well, which means that sometimes a bike with less than 48 brake horsepower but is super light won't be allowed. You can still get larger CC bikes like this TDM 850 because it can be restricted to the A2 license. Now, I'll be honest with you, this is the second time I've done this video because we kind of made a mistake the first time, but so I have looked over this bike and it actually looks like a genuinely good deal. It's an interesting bike. It isn't in too bad a condition. We did note that this looked like some faux fibre. It's in fake carbon fibre. I also noted how the shock looked quite clean, which is good. Either it's new or it's just been looked after well. The only major issues that are not really major, to be fair, are the exhaust is very rusty, the engine itself looks a little corroded, and the paint on the engine casings also looks a little bit ropey in places. But this is an old bike. It's done quite a lot of miles, 50,000 miles. And this one can be restricted to an A2 license. It isn't currently. That's why it says 80 brake horsepower, and I'm including talking about this in the A2s. The tyres look okay on it. It's got a bit of a crack in it there, but I think that might be a cut rather than age. There's quite a bit of life left in that one. And I noticed that it also has crash bars on it, which is handy. And although they do look like they've been painted over since they were made, or is it just peeling powder coat? Whatever, you can take those off, strip them up, and respray them if you need to. But note, there isn't any deep gouges in this side at least, so it doesn't look like it's been dropped, which is good. So that actually looks like quite a genuine deal. It's not a lot of money. You could probably knock them down a bit more than that as well. This is another one we looked at in the first attempt at this video that I thought was actually very nice. Kawasaki 750 ZR 7S, but this one, I think this one is actually restricted to an A2. Let's just find out. This again is a bike that needs to be restricted to an A2 license to use it, and it hasn't been, but you can do. That'll vary on some bikes. The newer stuff, it's normally an ECU flash, and on older bikes they do things like have throttle stops and blocks and all sorts of different methods of just basically reducing the power of the bike. This is quite a nice looking bike from the front. It is a bit less pretty from the side, very much how DIVI is. Looks better from the front than from the side. But otherwise, yeah, this looks like a reasonably clean, genuine old bike. Would do someone great. And also note that this has the USB charger and heated grips. Where are they? There they are, and that's the commuter kit, so you can guarantee this has just been used for commuting for years. Nice discs. I'd like to turn those into a clock. It's a 2002, 37,000 miles, so not necessarily that many, considering like my XJ6, which is a 2010, has done 50,000 miles. This is also an oil-cooled engine, and it kind of reminds me of the Bandit engine, so I think this is very much Kawasaki's version of the Bandit, going on the sort of, you know, the CC. It's a bit more than the Suzuki, but it's an oil-cooled inline-4. Kawasaki 250, I'm not going to look too much into the smaller CC stuff because frankly I think most people who get their A2 license want to make a bigger step up, and they tend to try and get as much power as they can out of their license. So here you got a Yamaha XV535, and this has got 46 brake horsepower, so this is by default, as long as the weight's correct, okay for an A2. 1997 and it's done less than 10,000 miles. It's just silly. Why do people have bikes and never use them? But I guess this is a classic sort of summer runner bike, isn't it, that someone will keep in their garage. But if that's your sort of thing, it looks in reasonable nick. Old school style sort of engine castings. Moving on, 250 again, we're going to move past these. Here we go, £1,900 SV650. That is a good call. So this is a 650, well, 645 V-twin. The SV is known as being a great A2 bike because it gives you most of the power, I believe. Or no, you restrict them. You have to restrict them. Yeah, see, this one's actually got the throttle restrictor installed, so this is ready to go for an A2 user. They're not necessarily the best looking bikes, they're not necessarily the fastest bikes, but they're good bikes. I've actually done a review on an old SV 650 if you want to see that, although it's not restricted, so it's not quite the same. But it's a good solid bike to own. That's actually quite a good one. That price isn't too bad, and the engines are tried and tested. The only thing that pops to my brain about the SV650 is if you do lots of wheelies, you can have oil starvation on the front pot if you're doing a lot of wheelies. There's a DRZ here, we're going to have a look at that. I've already done a whole video on the DRZ, as in buying one, so if you're interested in that, check that video out. Here we go, let's have a quick look at it first. Picture's a bit far away, we could have taken that landscape, couldn't we? Filled the frame, again. Hold the phone sideways, it has a different body kit on it. I get really triggered about bad photos. I've done a video on it. If you want to take better pictures when you sell your bike, watch the video. Yep, can't really see much on any of this because of the way they've taken the pictures. Yeah, the body kit's different on it. Why? Is that because it's gone into something? Is that just because they wanted to change the looks? Who knows? Although I'm saying in this video, like, yeah, it looks like an alright deal, I haven't seen the bike in person. I would want to go and see it, hear it running, do all the usual sort of stuff you do when you go and look at a bike. Things you should be checking is stuff like checking the headstock, checking the brake pads and the discs, see if they've got much life left in them. If they haven't, that can be quite a big percentage of the value of the bike, depending on how much you're spending in the first place. Tyres is something else. Hearing the engine run, it's important to be able to know if there's something going wrong with it. When you go and look at the bike, make sure it's cold when you get there. It's not got like a warm engine, because if it's got an issue which is it hides itself when it's warmed up, people will try and get around it with that. Chain and sprockets looks pretty old, so that's something that will need to be addressed. Otherwise, it actually looks okay. Not sure if that's been touched up, it's a bit difficult to say. And it's a sideways picture, so fail. This has actually done 33,000 miles. It's an 05, so it's 4 years older than mine as well. Mine's done about 30,000 at this point. Valid MOT until October 2020, so that's good. Oh, the smoke-free thing would be referring to if it's burning any oil. DRZs are well known that if you start them when they're cold and the rings are going, they'll smoke a bit and they'll use oil, which is something you have to keep on top of with them. That actually looks like another okay deal. I would be a little bit more questioning this one if I'm honest, just because of the style of bike and what they're used for, and I'd want to look for crash damage and stuff like that. 250 anyway. 250, I'm going to skip over the 250s just because, as I say, they are good bikes. There's nothing wrong with the 250 and it can work perfectly for a lot of people. But as I say, I know just from reading the comments, a lot of people want as much power as they can get from their license. Got another SV there. That's 250. Another SV there. That's the one that I would go for. When I was looking for a second bike, I was considering an SV, and I really wanted one of this shape with the extra fairing on it, because I think it looks 10 times better like this. I don't like the bikini shaped ones that much. These are definitely not rip-roaring race bikes. You know, it's a V-twin, it's very torquey, but 24,000 miles, 2007. £2,000 looks like a fair deal. Looks relatively clean. It would have just been used for commuting most likely. Good bike. MT-03, there is another good bike which a lot of A2 riders, well not a lot, but A2 riders who use them seem to really like. And I think these are restricted as well. This is saying it's suitable for an A2, so I'm guessing they don't need to be restricted. Which is surprising for a 660cc. It must have to be restricted, surely. Anyway, 21,000 miles, 2008. £2,000. I don't know why they bothered putting that 50 on the end. So they can knock the 50 quid off. Maybe. Yeah, again, that looks like a clean bike. Looks fairly genuine. Again, you're going to want to listen to the engine. 125. I mean, a 125 is an A2 legal bike, but no. Another MT-03. 250. people who've got 250s are now like, screw these bikes if you're totally disregarding them. I'm not totally disregarding it, it's just I'm going, as I say, for maximum power. I think that the 250s are actually very good bikes. Very agile. You can also save a fair bit of money getting a 250. Anyway, Kawasaki ER6N. 2006, 27,000 miles, 71 brake horsepower, so this will have to be restricted. Is it currently restricted? Find A2. There is no mention of A2. Can it be restricted for the A2 license then? I don't know why that's come up. As I don't know if that can be restricted, I'm going to not pass comment. MT-03, 250, 250, see, MT-03. Okay, maybe they are more common than I realised. I just didn't see many of them. KTM RC390. Now, there is a definite consideration I will look at. You know, it's more than a 250. It's a 390. Performance-wise, I can say that this is very much level pegging with a DRZ off the line up until about 70, 80, where this starts creeping off. This will do about 110. DRZ will stop at around 100. It's a single-cylinder engine, and they rev out way quicker than you expect, but they're so light. And even as a tall rider, I'm 6'4", I could ride one of those okay. So yeah, that is a definite contender for many people, and it's a nice looking bike as well. I don't want to spend too much time looking at each individual bike, because I think the idea of this is just to give you an idea of the sorts of bikes that you can get on an A2 and the popular ones. The SVs, the MT-03s it seems like, and a lot of the 250s. They've tricked this out a little bit, and you know, they put levers on it. Could be eBay specials, bar ends could be eBay specials, but whatever. I mean, if they work and they're good, then they're good. But just be warned, some of them are not good. Looks like they've got a custom seat on it. Some weird tank condom thing to protect the tank. That would just annoy me. But I'm sure it's protected the paintwork. Although it hasn't protected it from the ground, clearly. And you can see from this that this, here we go, forensics. It's got scratches, but they have got a directional line to them. So this most likely was moving when it went down, but they haven't gone too deep. So unless there's somewhere else it rides on the side of the bike, it looks like it didn't go down very fast if it was actually moving at the time. Braided lines, tail tidy, scorpion exhaust, RNG crash pop-ins, tank cover. See, that's a lot of things people would actually do themselves. So there is a way of saving some money, you know, because if you just want a louder exhaust and some nicer levers and stuff like that, people do these things themselves. 2009, 16,000 miles, 2,500. Bazooka of exhaust. Oh, that looks alright. Right, now we're getting into the Hondas and the 500s. So we've got a Honda CB500F. This is a bike that a lot of people do their A2 license on, so they end up buying the same bike. That's why you see a lot of people on A2s on Gladiuses. I think, yeah, it is Gladiuses. They just, some reason, apparently, my instructor told me, people tend to just buy the bike that they did their training on because they know it. I don't advise doing that, but this is actually supposed to be a nice bike. Again, very poor photos taken. On a camera phone, please just get a little bit of lighting and an SLR. Even just an SLR would improve this hugely. 2015, so it's not very old. It's only done 8,000, well, nearly 9,000 miles. Very little information about it though. Full service history, ABS brakes, history. That's just, yeah, very, very little information. I guess if you go there, they'll give you more. But that is a high contender for many people, as is, and what I suspect we're going to start getting into very soon, CBR 500Rs, the Reno Machino. And there is a Duke 390 for people who want the naked look. Again, you can see how just these bikes are just bare frames and an engine. That's why they're so light and agile. BMW, I need to take one of these out on a test ride. I do need to do that. If it's a nice day in the winter, maybe I'll do it. Oh, that's the 300. I forgot they did a 300. Well, it was better they went to the 5. Another RC390, another SV. We must be onto CBR territory. Here we go. Honda CBR 500R. RA? Why A? Don't know. At least they did this in reasonable lighting. You can actually see a bit more detail on it. It's got some nasty scratches going down the side of that Akrapovic, so that's definitely been on its side at some point. Though they don't look bad. Can't see any other damage from that drop. Or crash. Oh, there's a little bit, just a little scuff on there. Bodywork looks completely intact, which makes me a little suspicious that it has been replaced. Not necessarily a bad thing, but with this all this scratch damage and it's got no crash protection, I'd expect to see some more damage somewhere. This has got the pillion seat cowl, and note that this thing is not the best fitting, and it can rub a little bit. I know Reno's does. But yeah, the CBR 500R is basically on the limits of power you can have in an A2, and I actually think it's an absolutely fantastic bike in its own right. It's good for many people. Oh, hang on, here we go. Sorry, I completely missed that. It's Cat D. 2016, 640 miles, 3 grand. Considering it's a Cat D, see, when Cat D basically means the bike's been written off, and there's 4 classes, there might be 5, and basically A is it's a burning wreck, B is it's a complete mess, C is it's pretty bad but we can get it back on the road, D is it's normally cosmetic. And actually buying a written off bike can be both a good thing and a bad thing. If it definitely just was written off because of fairing damage, and seriously that can happen, just fairings alone can write a bike off. If you get a hold of one of those and you want a street fighter, you can get a hold of a second set of fairings from someone somehow, cheap deal. It's a good way of buying a bike and saving a chunk of change. It doesn't really make any great difference any other way. I don't think it doesn't affect your insurance or anything like that. If your bike is written off, for instance, and you buy it back from the insurance company, you do the work, you get an MOT on it, and boom, it's back on the road. Cat D on insurance, minor cosmetics only, now fully repaired except a few marks on the exhaust. Yeah, so that looks fairly genuine. It looks like it was a cosmetics one only, because the thing is, it's like if they want to replace this can, because, well, the stock one would be super expensive, but if this is the official one for the Honda, then they would want to replace that, and that would be full price, and then they'd look at full price of like this little black bit of paint missing here. They'd be like, oh, that's new suspension, new front suspension, new front end, need everything. Insurance companies just, it's getting a bit ridiculous. Kawasaki ER6F, again, another 3 grand. Let's have a look at that one, because that's an alternative we've not really looked at much. Looks like a commuter again. We've got heated grips, top box, fuzzy pictures, can't see too much detail. Great. The top box is a big selling point. How about looking at the actual bike? Yeah, the paintwork looks a little bit smudged, might need a clean, might be a little bit old. The suspension and forks and everything else looks kind of clean in between. Brakes don't look too bad. I can't see too much lipping, but there might be. Something worth checking, as I say, because if it's got dual discs on the front and you need pads as well, that's a couple of £100 there. It's something that can be used to negotiate the price. That is a god-awful mess of wires at the front. Otherwise, looks okay. So what more details is there on this? 2012, 14,000 miles, heated grips, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so, I thought it would be used for commuting. It's not being used that much. So why have they got, for 14,000 miles, why have they got the full commuter kit on the thing? Interesting. But yeah, that's another option. I thought the MT-03 was a 600, and now it's saying it's a 320cc. Where have I been confused along here? Wait, what? 321 seats? What? Okay, I'm really confused, because as I say, I always thought it was a 300, and at some point someone told me it wasn't. Huh? Look! Now, 2010, 2016. Oh, did they reduce the engine size at some point? And we've actually run out of bikes. So, what can you get on an A2 license? Well, for around 1,000 to 1,500, there's some older bikes with more miles on them. Could be great mint bikes that would last for a long time, or they might have more problems in the future. But then parts might be cheaper, you know, these are things you'll have to weigh up, and insurance will be cheaper. Or there's the middle ground of SVs and MTs and a few of the Kawasaki's in there. up until about the $3,000 mark, and then from about the $3,000 mark onwards you're into like the CBR 500Rs and stuff like that, but that's going above what we're looking at. But know that the CBR 500R starts around $3,000. If you can get one at like 2.5 and it hasn't got too many miles on it, it's in good nick, bargain. If there's any subjects like this you'd like me to look at, please let me know in the comments. If you're looking to get an A2 license, or a full license, or even just get onto a bike to start with your CVT, check out a playlist on my channel called Tips for New Riders, and that will help you out, because I've kind of made that playlist to have everything from the licensing, the laws, best practice, understanding the CVT and the modules and all that sort of stuff, and even some riding skills and how to ride a bike in the very first place. Hundreds of people have used this to get themselves onto two wheels, so I'm very proud of it. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye bye. If you enjoyed this video and the other content on the channel, please consider following the links in the description to show your support.